Let us know where you're checking in from. Let us know that you're here and watching along with us, so that we know. We'd love to include you in the process. If you have any questions, you want to add anything to the conversation, please feel free to comment. Hi, Moshe Ruvain. Good to see you. Thanks for clicking in. And I saw on Yahoo that your Instagram following is one of the top 13 Jewish Instagram followings out there. So pretty cool stuff. Great to see you doing good things out there in the world. Thanks for checking in today. And to all of you, again, please like, comment, share. Please let us know where you're watching from, and would love to have you as a part of the conversation. So again, the question that we are focused on today is, why does the Torah say the Jewish people are the chosen people? Isn't that racist? Okay? So if you open the Webster's Dictionary, the Webster's Dictionary defines racism as, quote, poor treatment of or violence against people because of their race. Or, quote, the belief that some races of people are better than others. And obviously, this has nothing to do with the Jewish people and our chosenness. Jews are not a race. The Jewish people are made up of all races that are out there. And as we spoke about yesterday, Judaism does accept converts, so you could choose to become chosen too. So it's not limited or keeping people out. And therefore, it is not real. You can't really say it's racist, okay? Because you can't convert to become part of the group that you're claiming to be racist. They wouldn't accept you, right? So obviously, racism does not really play a role in this conversation. Okay, so racism may not be the right word to use, but the question still remains. Isn't the belief in chosenness chauvinistic, prejudiced, contrary to modern values, and just a plain old bad idea? Today it's all about equality, everybody being the same, etc. So many Jews are very uncomfortable with this concept of chosenness, and they don't like to say that we are the chosen people. A major concern is that nations that perceive themselves as superior to others typically end up discriminating against others and persecuting others. For example, Nazi persecution arose from their racial theory of superiority. They thought they were better than everybody else, and that ended up leading them to trying to purge the world of people that they felt were less than them. And as the people who suffered most under their persecution, why would we want to continue with this idea of chosenness? Another concern is that some people say that this theory of chosenness is what leads to anti-Semitism. So why go with this theory? Why continue this concept of chosenness? Isn't this just a bad idea? So let's look in the Torah where this whole concept of the chosen people actually comes from, and see if we can get any insight into this. So let's look at in the book of Exodus. God instructed Moshe to tell the Jewish people the following before he gave them the Torah. Okay? What does he say? So God tells Moses to tell the Jewish people, and this comes from Exodus chapter 19, verses 4 through 6. Okay? And I quote, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and I brought you to me. And now, if you obey me and keep my covenant, you shall be to me a treasure out of all people, for mine is the entire earth. And you shall be to me a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. V'yisem li am segula, you will be a chosen people to me. You will be a precious nation to me. And this is with the idea of the Jewish people being different or special or chosen or a treasure to God. This is where the idea comes from. So, what does this verse mean? So, we're going to turn to one of the classical commentators on the Bible, on the Torah, Rabbi Ovadia Safarnu. And Rabbi Ovadia Safarnu explains this, and he says, he explains it, and he says, and I'll read to you a quote from Rabbi Ovadia Safarnu. He says, and I quote, "You shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples. The entire human race is more precious to me than all the lower creatures, because the purpose of creation is fulfilled through them. Indeed, our sages of blessed memory taught in the Mishnah, in the tractate of Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 14, beloved are the human beings, for they were created in the image of God. Nevertheless, from among all, you shall be my treasure." So, according to the Safarnu, the biblical passage does not only talk about the Jewish people. This biblical passage is talking about the special status not only of the Jewish people, but the special status of all people. Okay? You shall be to me a treasure out of all people. It could have simply said, you shall be my only treasure. The fact that Torah says you should be my treasure out of all people, says Rabbi Ovadia Safarnu, this conveys an important message that all people are precious to me, and that you are more precious than all people. But ultimately, God is trying to tell us that every single human being is precious to him. Why are all people special? Why are all people precious? So Safarnu gives us two reasons. First of all, the mission of the world and the mission of the divine mission of God's purpose in creating the world is affected by the daily choices and decisions of all human beings, of all people. So that's first of all. And second of all human beings are created in the divine image. That's not just limited to Jewish people. All humans are created in the divine image. They all have the gifts of intellect, free choice, and the potential for spiritual elevation. So basically, very simply put, if you think about it, the concept of thinking of yourself as better and putting people down in the process is typically comes from, and where it becomes a problem is usually this concept of chosenness or being better than others usually leads to dehumanizing propaganda, and which leads to hate and persecution. The whole idea of such propaganda is to demean people, to make people less than human, to make them subhuman, to say they are different than us. Leave it open. They are different than us in that they are less than us. Over here, and this becomes a hazardous superiority, and this must be fought and must be eradicated. But the Jewish concept of chosenness is just the opposite. Even as God is telling the Jewish people, you are chosen, He is, and that they play a role into a specific role that God chose for them. God at the same time reminds the Jewish people that all people are chosen. All people are created in the image of God. On the contrary, we're not just lifting up the Jewish people, but we're lifting up all people in the process. that all people are precious in God's eyes. They all play a role in bringing the world to meet its purpose, and that we are all in the image of God. And you can't label someone as inferior or unnecessary or treat them badly if you are teaching and preaching that they are made in the image of God and that they serve a divine purpose that they are very much needed for. The whole notion of trying to persecute them after that would never fly. So built into our chosenness is not just the chosenness of the Jewish people, but that all people are created in the image of God, and that all people are special in that way, and that every single person is required for the divine partnership. But nevertheless, even though all people are needed in the divine partnership, the reality is that the Jews are singled out as God's treasure. So what is this supposed to mean? What does it mean that we are God's treasure? How are Jews different? How are we better? If every single human being is made in the image of God, how much better can you get than being made in the image of God? Wouldn't you say that that is the ultimate? How do you become a treasure on top of that? So let's look at Rabbi Ovadia Safarnu as he continues to say, what is the uniqueness of the Jewish people? So he writes, "And you shall be for me a kingdom of princes. You shall be a treasure to me in the sense that you will be a kingdom of priests to guide and teach the entire human race to invoke God's name and to worship Him shoulder to shoulder." So the Safarnu says that what is the concept of chosenness? What do we mean when we say that the Jewish people are chosen? What are we chosen for? What we're chosen for is not a statement of greatness, but a call for responsibility. To be God's treasure means that we have a job and that's important, and the important and difficult task of guiding and teaching all of the nations of the world about ethical monotheism. While all humans play a role in this journey and bringing the world to its purpose, the Jew was chosen to be a guide to the world and teach the world about godliness, to give the world monotheism, to give the world morality, to show the world the beauty of family life, to broadcast the notion of divine purpose. And the mission is to demonstrate that each people, each nation, no matter who they are, what they look like, but everybody is needed, everybody is unique, everybody plays a role, and each and every single individual has a purpose to a purpose to play a part in the process. And of course, Jews need to lead by example. So this adds a further dimension of the harmfulness of our claim. We're not saying that we are better than anybody. We are saying that we are tasked with the responsibility of bringing this message to the world and teaching the world how to live in a godly way, how to fulfill its purpose, how to create family life, societies, the value of the individual, and bring that message to the world and make the world a better place. And as we see this, that while definitely there's still a lot of work left to do in the world, as we see, especially in present times, the world is far from at perfection, but there are well-known non-Jews that made observations of the progress that Jews have made to date. In a letter, in John Adam writes, in a letter to Vanderkemp, and I quote from you from John Adams, the second president of the United States, he writes like this: "In spite of Bolingbroke and Voltaire, who were people that belittled the Jews etc., and didn't exactly have nice things to say about the Jewish people. I will insist, says John Adams, that the Hebrews have done more to civilize man than any other nation. If I were an atheist and believed in blind eternal fate, I should still believe that chance had ordered that the Jews to be the most essential instrument for civilizing the nations. If I were an atheist to the other sect who believed or pretended to believe that all is ordered by chance, I still should believe that the chance had ordered the Jews to preserve and propagate to all mankind the doctrine of a supreme, intelligent, wise, almighty sovereign of the universe, which I believe to be the great essential principle of all morality, and consequently of all civilization. I cannot say that I love the Jews very much, neither, nor the French, nor the English, nor the Romans, nor the Greeks. We must love all nations as well as we can, but it is very hard to love most of them. And essentially what he's saying here is that the Jewish people have brought certain gifts, and the world we have today is a world that's built on Judaic values. And as Paul Johnson writes in History of the Jews, one way of summing up 4,000 years of Jewish history is to ask ourselves what would have happened to the human race if Abraham, the first Jew, had not been a man of great sagacity. I think that's how you say the word. If he had stayed in Ur and kept his higher notions to himself, and no specific Jewish people had come into being, certainly the world without the Jews would have been a radically different place. All of the great conceptual discoveries of the intellect seem obvious and inescapable once they have been revealed, but it requires a special genius to formulate them for the first time. The Jew has this gift. To them, we owe the idea of equality before the law, both divine and human, of the sanctity of life and the dignity of the human person, of the individual conscious and so for personal redemption, of the collective conscience and so for the social responsibility, of peace as an abstract ideal and love as the foundation of justice, and many other items which constitute the basic moral furniture of the human mind. Without the Jews, it might have been a much emptier place. So here you see it. The gift that the Jews have brought to the world. The world would be a radically different place if not for the chosenness of the Jewish people. And again, as we mentioned, it's not about, as though Sefarnu sees this chosenness, he sees this concept as being chosen with responsibility. Not chosen that we are better than others, but chosen with the responsibility of making the world a better place and leading by example. So chosenness, according to Sefarnu, is not a statement of greatness, but a call to responsibility. To be God's treasure means that we need to toil at the important but difficult task of guiding and teaching all the nations of the world about ethical monotheism. And that's what it's really all about. Chosen for responsibility, chosen for a mission to transform the world and to teach all of the nations of the world of our mission and our role in making the world a better place. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. So we've seen the Sefarnu's approach of these verses, and that it's that the chosenness is a call to responsibility. But Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, one of the first commentaries, one of the most basic commentaries on the Torah, every printed book of the Torah, any chumash that you have, that you open up, you'll find Rashi's commentary in. He writes a little bit differently. And he actually says the Jewish people are chosen because we are special. He focuses on the specialness of the Jewish people. And as Rashi says, Segula, what does it mean to be a treasure or chosen? A beloved treasure, As it says, the treasure of kings, which refers to the costly vessels and precious stones that kings store away, so you will be my treasure from among the nations. And Rashi seems, so while Sepharnu seems to see treasure or chosen as chosen for a responsibility, Rashi doesn't make it, and we're chosen for a task. Rashi does not seem to be focusing on any task in our chosenness. Of course, Rashi will agree that Jews do have this task, but the chosenness stands out as independent from this task, according to Rashi. Chosenness is defined by being closer to God, like a king who relates and cares for all of his subjects, but keeps his gold treasures nearby for personal pleasure. So too, God may have many peoples, but keeps the Jews close and takes a special delight in the Jewish people. So Rashi's approach, which seems to be focusing on chosenness, does not cancel out the Sepharnu's approach. It still remains true that all human beings are precious in God's eyes, and they all play a role in bringing the world to meet its purpose, and they all are made in the image of God. But and it remains true that you cannot label somebody inferior, because every single person's job is necessary, and you can't be regarded as less than because you are precious in God's eyes no matter what. If you're made in His image and you have a cosmic purpose in creation, you can't be lesser than anybody else. Nevertheless, this concept of chosenness is not defined by a task. It would seem that this Rashi's way of looking at it might actually lead to some sort of haughtiness or some sort of unexpressed and maybe non-communicated, but feeling better than others. But in truth, however, it doesn't lead to that at all. And the reality is that when one is close to God, not only don't you feel better than others, in fact, you feel much smaller than others. As Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi writes in the Tanya, he writes like this: every act of kindness that God bestows upon us has to render us more humble. God's kindness is an embrace of God's right arm, a metaphor of God bringing us closer to Himself, far more intensely than before. The closer we are to God, the more humble we need to be. As it is written in Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 2, from afar the Lord has appeared to me. It is known that all that is before Him is esteemed as nothing, which implies that the more one is before Him, the more one is like non-existent. So when we think of God, we tend to think in human paradigms to understand God. And often such paradigms don't really convey the truth. When you're chosen by the CEO of a company, let's say you worked for Apple and Steve Jobs before, had chosen you for a specific job, that might lead to haughtiness. That might lead to making you feel better than everybody else. See, out of all people, he chose me. So it makes you feel great, perhaps even superior to others. We therefore assume that the same is true to God. When God says to the Jewish people, you are my chosen people, now, or you're my treasure above all people, that might make you feel more better than others. But the truth is, it's not like that at all. Because the truth is that the more you get to know God, the more you understand about God, the more you realize how distant God is, how God is infinite, and the more you become aware of God, the more finite you feel. The greater the distance you realize there is, the smaller you feel before God. So when we become close to God, it doesn't lead us to a sense of ego or haughtiness or feeling better, but being in front of Him, we realize how much more distant we are, and how this reality is even more true. So the emotional result of being chosen by God is not a sense of superiority, but it's actually a sense of awe and humility. So just to summarize Rashi's idea, is that chosenness could also be defined as a special closeness to God, but the emotional result of being close to God is not a sense of being superior, but a sense of awe and humility. For when someone is close to God, we come face to face with the truth of His grace, of His greatness, and His infinity, and how small and how limited we actually are. So, as we see in Fiddler on the Roof, he says, I know we are the chosen people, but once in a while, can't you, Tevye says, once in a while, can't you choose somebody else? Tevye is making, he's bringing to the attention, he's calling to our attention, and he's bringing to the reality that the chosenness, and he doesn't like the chosenness because he thinks that chosenness is the result of why we are hated so much, the reason why we're hated so much in the world. And the reason why there's anti-Semitism is because we are chosen. And there are some Jews today that are very uncomfortable with this whole concept of chosenness for a variety of reasons. But this is actually the irony of being chosen. The more we embrace our chosenness, rather than being ashamed of it, the more we choose to live up to it rather than deny it, the more humble and kind and compassionate and less haughty and self-centered we will be. Because we recognize our chosenness according to Rashi and according to the Sefarnu. Either we recognize our task that we were chosen for, and we acknowledge that we are chosen and realize that it's not about how great we are, but how important our job is. We should never give up our chosenness in the name of equality. In the same way that a person shouldn't give up their unique role they bring to the table in the name of equality. You would never expect the quarterback of a football team to step down from being a quarterback to join the people on the line. That would destroy the whole purpose of what you trained for, who you are, and what you do. The best way you can contribute to the story and the best way you can contribute to the team is being who you are. And when you embrace who you are, then you can do the best job at bringing your value and to the team. So, there's a story I heard from Rabbi Manis Friedman. He tells that once a student asked him, am I going to heaven or hell? So Rabbi Manis Friedman asked him, what did your rabbi tell you? So the student replied that the rabbi said that Jews don't believe in hell. But the student continued and said, but let's suppose I end up in hell. How is it going to help me that my rabbi doesn't believe in hell? Believing in hell or not believing in hell is not going to change whether it exists or not. And just because you say you don't believe in it, if you end up there for whatever reason, it's not going to help you get out. You can't just say, well, I don't believe in this. So too, chosenness and unchosenness is not up to you. The only way you could say chosenness is up to you is if you say that the Torah isn't divine. But if you believe that the Torah, as Judaism does, and as most people of the world do, if you believe that Torah is divine, and the Torah tells us that we are the chosen people, then trying to deny it is not going to get you anywhere. The more you embrace it, the more you realize it means you have a tremendous task on hand. and that you have something to bring to the world, and you have the responsibility of educating and being on the forefront of change and using our Jewish tradition, philosophy, and thinking to make the world a better place, teaching the world, teaching the nations of the world of how to make the world into a divine home for God, bringing the sense of purpose of creation, that every single human being plays a role, that we're all necessary to fulfill the mission that God gave to us. The more we dedicate ourselves to the mission that we were chosen for, the more we realize we stand in the presence of God and we realize we're small before God. The more will actually get done. So ultimately, the world will judge us by our action, and if our belief in us being chosen means that we are extra kind and extra compassionate, who's going to argue with that? The world awaits a leader. The world awaits light. The world awaits a better future. Let's go out. Let's share it. Let's go with humility. Let's go with unity. But most of all, let's go. To summarize, denying our chosenness would be a disservice to humanity. And furthermore, denying it will never make it not true. We should embrace our chosenness and embark on our chosen mission to bring more goodness and kindness to humanity, for ultimately, the world will judge us by our actions. That's today's topic. I hope you enjoyed. And thanks for joining us. Again, as usual, we'd love for you to leave some comments, or where you're watching from, or how you enjoyed the class, or questions, or whatever you would like to. Again, thanks you for tuning in and being a part of it. I also want to give a special shout out and thank you to all of you that already joined our summer raffle. I believe some 110 people participated so far, and we sold some 380 something tickets. And every one of those tickets, every dollar that comes in from the raffle goes to help Jewish student life on campus at UCF. And you can win some awesome prizes. And even if you don't win the prizes, you still win an amazing mitzvah of making Jewish life at UCF better. The money goes to help support the classes on campus, and it goes to support Shabbat dinners on campus. Now these days it's Shabbat dinners to go, and other things like that. So please join us and get some tickets at jewishucf.com/raffle. Also, hot off the press, this coming semester, fall semester, we'll be doing a fully online class of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, and not just out there Kabbalah stuff, but Kabbalah, how you could apply things to your own life, like who you are, and and things like that. You could join our Kabbalah class, and you could sign up today at my.ucf.edu, and the course code is JST 3210. Please join the class. I think you'll love it, and have a great day. Otherwise, see you tomorrow, God willing. And tomorrow's topic is going to be, why do we believe that we have free choice if God always knew what we would choose? Right? We believe in God being all-knowing. He knows what we're going to do. Yet we still say that we have free choice. How can they both be true? How can God know what we're going to do? And how could we reconcile that with the fact that in Judaism we believe that we have free choice? Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.